All right, good evening, everybody. This is Mrs. Renee. I'm one of the Hebron counselors, and we are so happy that you're here with us tonight. I also have with me presenting tonight Dr. Jessica Robinson. Give a little wave there. Tonight, we will also have our chat box open. So in the bottom, usually it's the bottom right-hand corner. If you have questions as we go along, we're going to be talking about different financial aid information and pieces. You can jot down your question there in the chat box, and we have a couple other Hebron counselors that are going to help us answer those questions. We have Ms. Lovett tonight, Mrs. Rayford, and Mrs. Hood that's going to help us with those questions. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started with you guys tonight. Second here. Okay, Dr. Robinson, can you see that?
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, I just wanted to start with this first slide. This is a list of all the Hebron counselors, their last name, their email address, and the alphabet split that they serve. I know your students and the students that are on here are seniors, so hopefully you already know who that counselor is. But if you don't, this would be a great time to jot down that information or just kind of store it in your memory for future use this year. All right, tonight we're going to go over these main points. What is financial aid? Who can get financial aid? What are the types of financial aid? How much money do I need? How much money can I receive? How do I apply for financial aid? What happens after I apply for the FAFSA or the TASFA? And where can I get more information or assistance about financial aid? I know it's a very long list. We will get through it shortly here. Okay, what is financial aid? Financial aid is money that you can get to pay for college or a career school. There's 4 types of financial aid. You're going to hear a lot of different words, a lot of different phrases, but if you can just keep these 4 areas in mind, it'll make it much easier for you. The first one is federal grants, and federal grants come from filling out the FAFSA, and we're going to talk about the FAFSA a lot tonight, so you'll hear that word. It is an online application where the federal government can distribute money based on your need. The second one is work study. We will go into a little bit more about what work study is. It is basically jobs on campus that will also pay towards your tuition. The third one is loans. Again, that's through FAFSA. We're going to be talking about subsidized versus unsubsidized loans. And then the fourth area is scholarships. Some scholarships are based on the FAFSA report and some are not. Again, here are the 4 types of financial aid, kind of in a graph for you, might help a little bit understanding which is gift aid, which means you don't need to do anything in return for that money. Also, there is self-help aid, and those are the things that you will have to do something like the work study, loans that you have to pay back, and that sort of thing. Okay, it's not letting me go to the next slide because someone is annotating it. That's Mr. Wynn. Mr. Wynn, can you try to exit out of the annotation, please? Because that's keeping me from not being able to go to the next slide. Can one of my co-hosts happen to do that with Mr. Wynn? Okay. Interesting.
Hang tight, Janelle. We're trying on our.
Well, it looks like Mr. Wynn has left the meeting. He's trying to be hopeful there. I understand that. It's just still not letting me proceed for some reason. It has me in the annotation
Janelle, exit
And,
out of the presentation and
oh, here we go.
unshare and then
It's right
share
here.
again.
I think I found it. There we go. Thank you, Marlene. All right. Who can receive federal student aid? U.S. citizen, national or eligible non-citizen, high school diploma. You have to have a high school diploma or equivalent, like your GED. You have to be applying for an eligible degree or certificate program in a college or a career school. Your student has to have a valid social security number. Males have to register for the selective service. And you have to have satisfactory academic progress in college and career school. Okay, if you need more information about what makes you eligible, if you have more questions about what makes me a U.S. citizen, national, eligible, non-citizen, you can go to the studentaid.gov eligibility, and they can answer all your questions there. We will post this at the very end. I'm sorry, we will post this tomorrow on the Hebron website, so you'll have this presentation and the recording as well to go back to.
Can you go? I got a question. Go back real quick. The satisfactory progress, academic progress. Does that mean grade satisfaction or?
Yes, it does. And then once you receive FAFSA, once you get the FAFSA financial aid basically going at your college, anytime you get financial aid, you have to make a certain grade point average to keep that financial aid.
Yes, understood.
Awesome.
All right, so there is another version of the FAFSA called the TASFA. Now, I bet some of y'all are thinking, well, what type of financial aid application should I use? This all goes back to residency status. If you are a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident with a permanent residency card, if you have a special type of visa, or if you're an eligible non-citizen with a specific arrival and departure record, you can still use that FAFSA application. If you are not any of those above statuses, if that's not the way you identify, but you are a Texas resident, and if you are eligible for in-state tuition, which your financial aid representatives at your college or university that you go to can help you with, then you would fill out the Texas application for the state financial aid. So we will be doing a TAFSA night later on for those of y'all who qualify, but we did want to make y'all aware that there are two different types of financial aid applications that we could be talking about at any one time. So then how do you qualify for Texas residency? If your student has graduated from a Texas high school or received a GED, if y'all have lived in Texas for 3 years before graduating from high school or receiving that GED, if y'all will have lived in Texas for 12 months prior to the census date of the semester in which they enroll at that college or university, and the census date usually happens between a week to 10 days into the semester, and that's the point in time where students cannot switch their classes anymore. If the student has applied or plans to apply to become a permanent resident at their earliest opportunity, those 4 categories all help prove Texas residency. Now, the TAFSA form that we just went over is only available on paper. The FAFSA, so the one that starts with an F, is available only online. The TAFSA, the one for Texas, is available in both English as well as Spanish. And if the student does want to pursue the TAFSA, the one with a T, that route, they do need to submit one for each college or university that they would like to apply for. And that's a separate paper application for each one of them. So one of the questions we discussed wanting to review with y'all is the question of how much financial aid do I really need? So we got online and we did some research between a community college that is very well known around these parts, Collin, and UTD, a comparable 4-year university. Well, if you notice, tuition fees at $103 per credit hour with Collin is roughly just under $2,500. We estimate just over $1,800 for books and supplies. For room and board, we estimate just over $12,000. Transportation is typically between $2,500 and $3,000, and then we also estimate miscellaneous costs if the choice is to go to a 2-year community college at just over $3,000. Now you'll notice that the box we highlighted on bottom is just a little bit over $14,000. Now if you look on the other side, that $14,000 that you see is the tuition and fees at the 4-year institution. Again, if you look through and you compare those two totals, the financial need to go to a 4-year institution is about $10,000 more than what it would cost to go to a 2-year community college like Collin. These rates are based on the current tuition and fees calendars that each institution has online. And they are also based on 12 semester hours total. Now, we have put those websites down on this slide as well, and we simply displayed this slide to give you guys an idea of the difference between how much a 2-year institution costs and how much a 4-year institution costs. So then there's the other question. How much federal student aid can I get? Well, that depends on your financial need, but there are 2 different terms we want to teach you all about tonight. Your financial need is determined by your expected family contribution, your EFC, as well as your cost of attendance. So your estimated family contribution comes from what you actually report on that FAFSA application, your income, your assets, your savings, things like that. The cost of attendance, which was displayed on the other side, then was exactly as close as we can get to how much it would cost per semester at that institution. So to determine your financial need, the government takes the cost of attendance per institution, subtracts the expected family contribution, and there is your financial need that you could get as a result of applying for the FAFSA. So there are, like Mrs. Renee discussed at the beginning of this presentation, there are different types of financial aid. There is something called the Federal Pell Grant, which is available to those who do qualify for it, and it does price out per credit hour taken. Other financial aid packages, you have to be a full-time student to get considered. The max that you can get is $650 to almost $6,500 per year, but this does not mean that you will automatically get that. Again, that goes back to the estimated family contribution that's calculated as a result of y'all filling out the FAFSA. Now, work study truly does depend on the funds that are available at the institution where the student wants to attend. And I tell students all the time, when they receive their offer letter in terms of their financial aid packet that they'll get, they will see a line typically that says work study with a certain amount of dollar signs after that. Well, that does not mean that that's money that's been given to them. Instead, that means that they are eligible to get a campus job on campus where they can earn up to that amount. Now, typically that's about $13 an hour. We've cross-compared a bunch of different institutions. And honestly, sometimes other jobs can pay a little bit more. However, students don't get the flexibility of working on campus, and that money goes directly back to their tuition. And it typically is that the institution themselves will pay for a certain portion of the hourly wage, and the government will pay for the others. Now we have our direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans, which we'll go over in just a second. Typically per year, those are about $5,500 to $9,500. And then there's actually a direct parent plus loan, which is the cost of attendance minus any other aid received to try to help parents again fill those gaps where is necessary. And then there are a lot of other funding types available as well if you go to that student aid website.
Okay, we get a lot of questions from students about the different types of loans. So we just wanted to spend just a small amount of time here explaining the difference. Subsidized and unsubsidized. Students will be hearing that a lot if they're applying for financial aid. Subsidized loans is really the best kind of loan. A couple reasons for that. The federal government, it will actually pay the interest for you while you're in college and through your grace period after college. So what that means is a lot of times they will give you 6 months, let's say, after you graduate to get a job, that sort of thing, before you start paying it back. It's also a lower interest rate. On this slide, we actually went out and looked at what the current interest rates are. And right now for a subsidized loan, it's around 3.73%. The unsubsidized loans, students paying interest while in school, and the current interest rate for that is 5.2% to 7.3%. Okay. The Direct Plus loan, which is the parent loan, and a lot of times we get kids in here that show us their financial aid offer letters, and they think this it just says Direct Plus loan. It doesn't say anything about parents on there. So they just think it's another loan that they can take, and they're like, yeah, I'll take it. So we want to make sure if there's any parents listening tonight that you know the Direct Plus loan is actually a loan that parents can take. Anywhere from 5.3% to 6.28% right now. Loans typically is kind of the last thing you want to do because you don't want to have to pay back money if you don't have to. If you think about using a credit card, which surprisingly a lot of students do, they put their tuition on a credit card, that is 18%. So if that sort of thing is what needs to be done, then taking a loan would actually be much better than putting that on a credit card. Okay. All right. How do I actually apply for federal student aid? This is the big question because we want to make sure we do this. You're going to do that through the FAFSA, which we've talked about. It opens October 1st every year. I also want to make sure everyone knows that financial aid is something that has to be applied for every single year. So every October 1st, the FAFSA opens. So we really want to encourage our students who want financial aid, who needs it, even people that they're not really sure if they need it or not, why not fill it out? I mean, if you get some Pell Grant money or maybe the school that you go to is giving out some scholarships and they're going to want a FAFSA on file. So it would be best to go ahead and do it. So it does open October 1st. The Texas grant deadline is January 15th. So we try to encourage the Hebron students to fill that out between October 1st and January 15th. It does go longer. You do have more time to fill it out. You just won't be eligible for the Texas grant. So that's why we like people to fill it out by January 15th. Apply as early as possible so that colleges can access your information as soon as you are accepted. Once they accept you, if that FAFSA information is already there, that's awesome. They can go ahead and put together your financial aid package for you. So if you've been accepted to, let's say, 4 schools, you will get a financial aid package from all 4 schools. You'll be able to sit down, compare those packages, and then decide for you which is the best college to actually go ahead and accept and commit to. Okay. Other scholarship deadlines are around February 1st. So another reason to go ahead and get that in as quickly as possible. The bottom line, apply for FAFSA early so you have more time to work on scholarship applications afterwards, okay? Because those are a little bit separate. This is a quick 3-minute video. It's very short. It's very, very informative. This is from the actual FAFSA people on how to fill out the FAFSA. So we're going to take a quick 3 minutes and watch this video real quick. This will be very helpful for everybody here. Hopefully it will come up.
The free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA, is the application for grants, loans, and work-study funds provided by the federal government. It is also used by many state schools for their financial aid programs. For the fastest and easiest way to apply, visit our official website, FAFSA.gov. The FAFSA is available in English and Spanish. As you fill it out online, you'll be able to automatically skip questions that don't pertain to you, check out your status immediately, and get online help. It takes most people less than 30 minutes to complete the application. You'll need a few things when you fill it out, so get ready by gathering your Social Security number, your permanent resident card if you have one, any W-2 forms or records of money you earned for the previous year, and your tax records. By the way, a nice time-saving feature of the FAFSA is that many people are eligible to automatically transfer their tax data from the IRS into the FAFSA. So keep an eye out while you're applying in case you're offered that option. If you have any questions about what information to gather, there is a complete list of documents that you will need at fafsa.gov. Before you begin the process of filling out the FAFSA, you should create a username and password called an FSA ID that will act as your electronic signature. You'll only need to create an FSA ID once, and you can use it to renew your FAFSA each year that you apply. Your parents will need an FSA ID too if they have to provide any information. So now you're ready to begin filling out the FAFSA to apply for financial aid. There are 3 groups of questions that include personal information, such as your name, address, and marital status, financial information, such as your income, and any parent information that is required. If you get hung up or confused about a question, the Help and Hints box on the right-hand side of the application can help with each question as you move along. Also, look for the online chat feature under Help if you would like assistance from a knowledgeable agent. Because colleges and career schools use the FAFSA to provide financial aid, you can list up to 10 schools that you are interested in attending. You should list all of the schools that you are considering, even if you haven't been accepted or applied yet. If you have more than 10 schools in mind, you can submit your FAFSA with 10 schools and then replace some of those schools with other schools later. When you finish filling out the FAFSA, use your FSA ID to sign the form. If you are required to submit parent information on your FAFSA, a parent will need to sign the application with his or her own FSA ID as well. If you have any questions or need more information, please visit studentaid.gov.
All right. All right, let's just go through a couple more things here. As the video was explaining, the most important thing to do before you fill out the FAFSA is to create your FSA ID. Sometimes that will take overnight to generate. So, it's open now, the link that's listed on this slide, which we will publish tomorrow. You can click on it and go ahead and create your FSA ID tomorrow or tonight even. Students will have to have one and parents will have to have one. It has to be a different email address. You can't use the same email address and you'll have a different IDs. At the end, you will have to sign, both the student and the parent will have to sign those that FAFSA application. Okay. Let's see. Obviously, don't tell anyone what your FSA ID is. You don't want someone to be able to go into your account and changing information. So that's really important. We have a FAFSA night. I think we'll touch on this a little bit later, but this is something to have done before you come to the FAFSA completion night. You need to have your FSA ID already completed. Okay, the second thing, as the video said, gather the documents that you need to be able to apply. You're going to need your social security number. You're going to need that FSA ID, parents' W-2, parents' tax information. Last spring, we submitted to the government our 2020 tax information. So typically you use the tax information that you did just recently, if that makes sense. Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, Jessica, is that correct? Or will they use the 2019?
No, we'll use whatever current tax information you've received in response.
Okay.
FAFSA used to be due in February, but they moved it up to October. So the timeline feels a little bit different to us, but they did that so that we have as much time to apply for scholarships that aren't coming from the federal government or the state government as possible.
Awesome. All right, and then step 3 is actually apply. So we've put the link in here for you. Once you have that FSA ID and all the documents in front of you, click on that and go ahead and fill out the form. Like they were saying, it takes, about 30 minutes. If you're a student listening to this, it really is helpful to have your parents sitting with you and y'all doing it together. It goes much faster. I know that from personal experience, filling this out with both of my high school sons. Again, in 30 minutes is about right, 20 to 30 minutes. After you fill it out, you'll be watching for responses by email or by mail. Usually it's email, confirming that your FAFSA has been processed. And a lot of times they will, send you follow-up emails kind of about like what's next. Also, the FAFSA website has really improved as far as now you can go in and see where your FAFSA is. Has it been approved? You can go in if you need to make any changes to it, if something changes financially. All of that now is through that website, where it used to be you'd have to submit special documents and go in there and make changes a special way. But starting this year, they've made it a lot easier for everybody. Oops. Hold on 1 second.
All right, so what happens after you push that submit button on the FAFSA? Well, we want to encourage y'all to watch for acceptance emails or letters from the schools that you're considering going to. We also want to encourage y'all to go to those specific college and universities' websites to see if there's extra forms that you may need to submit or other scholarship applications. We're going to show you in a second an offer letter that y'all will receive from a school, and we're going to show you how to evaluate that. But then once you decide which school you want to attend, we really encourage you to keep in touch with that financial aid office and other scholarships offered by that institution. Some institutions allow you to use your FAFSA as a scholarship application. Others have a completely separate scholarship application, and others embed that into the actual application that you have and complete when you apply to that institution. We also wanted to help y'all understand that the FAFSA has to go through multiple levels of organizations before it gets approved and before it actually comes back to you. So step one, you submit the FAFSA with correct information about your personal financial status. You also tell the FAFSA what schools you want that interest to be sent to. And then you have to have that ID in your e-signature. After that, it goes all the way up to the federal government, and the federal government has a huge algorithm spreadsheet that helps determine your expected family contribution. The federal government then gives that expected family contribution to the states that house the institutions that you want to attend. The individual states and the institutions in those states determine their school's cost of attendance. So that's back down to level 2. Once they complete that calculation, individual institutions will then determine the award package. So if a student applied to Baylor, UTD, and Collin and worked through the process with each of them, they would get an award letter from Collin, an award letter from UTD, and an award letter from Baylor. Once the student decides between those two, using this example, using this example where they would like to attend, they actually have to go in and accept, reject, or accept a partial amount of each one of those awards. And here is our lovely example. So for Mr. Joe Sample, this would appear in whatever version of Skyward that institution used. The estimated cost of attendance would display right at the top of the screen, and then the awards would reveal themselves below. Now you can see that our friend Mr. Joe got a great scholarship from the president. He got some Pell Grant money. He got another type of grant. He got a scholarship from the state, and then you can see the parent loan, the subsidized and unsubsidized loan, and the work study. Again, in this table, it would be very easy to see that work money and say, awesome, that is $6,000 more that I've been offered to attend this institution. Mr. Joe needs to go out and get that on-campus job. It also would be tempting to go through all those loans and just click that accept, yes, yes, yes. Well, with loans, typically, there is an option to only accept a partial amount. Say our friend Mr. Joe was offered that unsubsidized loan of $1,000, but y'all as a family sat down and figured out that maybe only $250 of that was needed. Well, there will be another box that says accept partial amount, and you can literally type in that 250.
Okay, so we have now talked about the first 3 types of financial aid help, which again was the grants, loans, and work study employment. So the fourth type that we haven't talked about yet is scholarships. We just want to spend a little bit of time on scholarships. We get a lot of questions from students about scholarships. Again, scholarships was just a quarter of the piece of that pie. So I do think sometimes kids think, oh, everything has to be from a scholarship, when it doesn't. That's where the FAFSA is so important to fill out, because those other three pieces are connected to that FAFSA application. So on the scholarships can be from colleges. Scholarships can be from private organizations. There's lots of different ways to get scholarships. The first bullet here is the scholarships from your college. Make sure financial aid department has access to your FAFSA, like Dr. Robinson was saying. The FAFSA does give you a place to list 10 colleges that you're interested in. Even if you don't wind up applying to all 10 of them, you can go ahead and put 10 colleges in there so that that information is automatically sent to them. Okay, so that's a good idea to go ahead and do that. Fill out necessary forms on the financial aid student portal for your college. Again, some of the colleges will need a FAFSA, some of the colleges will not. Some of them will be more on merit-based, not on need-based. So what that means is they'll go by your academics, what's your GPA, what's your rank. Some scholarships are given for different states and different things like that. So there is a little difference. There are some scholarships you don't need to fill out the FAFSA for, but we still encourage it just to make sure it's safe. Okay, and then the second one is the LEF, which is the Louisville Education Foundation. Our students, we love for our students to apply for LEF scholarships. They will open in November, and you will get an email from us about, hey, LEF is open, apply at this link. We have many, many Hebron students that get scholarships from them. It's just a huge scholarship pool. So there's different types of scholarships you can get. Some of them are specific to, like, I'm a basketball player from the basketball booster club, let's say. The cheerleading booster club, some of it's academic based. So we encourage all of our seniors to make sure in November, once that opens, that you go ahead and fill that out. It does close in January, so you do need to do it pretty quickly. And then there's private scholarships. Doing a Google search is a great way to find these. I'm trying to give an example here. My own son, for example, he has a pacemaker because of a congenital heart defect. He literally went in when he was a senior and wrote in Google scholarship for heart kids, and like 3 or 4 scholarships popped up. So try to think of things that make you unique, whether that's a health thing, whether that's something about your family, maybe something about your religion, your race. Try to search on those type of things, and you'll be surprised what comes up automatically in Google. And then the last way is to actually use some scholarship search engines. FastWeb is one, scholarships.com. What you'll do there is you'll set up a profile, and you'll kind of tell them a little bit about yourself, what you're interested in, what majors you're interested in, and they will go through scholarships and send you emails like, oh, you might want to apply for this one, or how about this one for you? And you can go in and say, no, I'm not interested, or yeah, I'm interested. So it's a good way to kind of filter through different scholarships. And then the last one, the College Board does have a very nice list of scholarships there for you as well. Okay, we're almost done. Here are some last little tips from the Hebron Counseling Department that we've kind of learned through the years in helping students here. Ways to save money. Typically, your first year is your most expensive year. And as a parent who has 2 students in college, I have found that to be very true. They do learn how to cut corners, so to speak, after that first year. They understand the process, the scholarship process and financial aid process a lot better. They're probably in an actual college. They're not undecided anymore. So let's say they're in the College of Business. The business college will have scholarships. So there's just a lot of things a student can do after that first year to cut down on costs. The first thing, obviously, living at home helps bring down expenses. If you go back and look at that slide that Dr. Robinson went over with the comparison between a junior college and a 4-year college, $10,000 to $12,000 a year can be cut out just by living at home. And you can still go to or commute to a 4-year college from this general area. We do have colleges nearby, so make sure you look at that. The second one, look for schools that give in-state waivers based on GPA and or test scores or rank. Examples of that, University of Arkansas is really good about giving our Texas students in-state tuition. We do have some schools in Oklahoma. I know Eastern Oklahoma is one of them. So just kind of look for that as well. It's a great way to save money. Tuition assistance programs based on your FAFSA. Ask your university about these. A lot of them have them and you may not even know anything about it. So once you're accepted, again, get a hold of that financial aid office at the school you've been accepted to and say, hey, here I am. I've submitted my FAFSA. What else do I need to know to get money from your school? And they will definitely help you with that. Dr. Robinson and I were commenting the other day, we've never met a grumpy financial aid representative before. So they usually are super nice, super helpful. So don't hesitate to get a hold of someone at the school that you wind up deciding to go to. Student employer tuition reimbursement, great programs. I just jotted a couple down that I know about. There's a lot more out there. Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, Walmart. An example like Starbucks, they use Arizona, I think it's Arizona State, maybe Arizona University, one of the Arizona schools online program. So if you work for Starbucks a certain amount of hours a week, they will reimburse you for college tuition, which is great. And from what I hear, Walmart has a great one and Chick-fil-A has something available too. I know there's other ones. I'm pretty sure Burger King does. So wherever your student's working or students wherever you're working, think about that. Ask them, do you have a tuition reimbursement plan of any kind here? Or find out who has one and maybe seek employment there. That might be a great plan for you too while you're in college. Also, parent employer tuition reimbursements. A lot of parents don't think about this, but their corporations, their companies, you might not know through your benefits department has some kind of tuition reimbursement for your child. So definitely ask your companies about that. And then parent employer scholarships are also out there. For example, parents who work for Coca-Cola or Burger King, Frito-Lay, they all have scholarships that your students can apply to. So those are other great ways of getting free money. Okay, where can I get more information? Dr. Robinson and I are definitely not financial aid representatives. So you may have a lot of more detailed questions that we didn't cover tonight. So these are some places that you can go to find more information. The first thing we're going to have October 6th here at Hebron is the FAFSA completion night. If you try on October 1st through the 5th to fill out the FAFSA and you get stuck, please come up on October 6th from 5:30 to 7 in the library. We are going to have people that can sit down with you one-on-one and help you get through the FAFSA. If you don't want to start it at home, you're hesitant, you just want to start it with somebody, an actual financial aid representative or staff member that does this daily, we will have people here to help you through that. So please, please bring the right documentation and take advantage of that on October 6th. Also, starting on October 6th, the GO Center, which is the Financial Aid Center at UNT, they will be here during the school day for our students every Wednesday, beginning October 6th, from 10:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. There are flyers around the building that they can scan to sign up for a time to meet with them. They can do it during lunch. They are here to help the kids with college applications, scholarships, how to fill out the FAFSA, anything like that. They are awesome to work with. So that's a great resource that we have on the Hebron campus too. Outside of the Hebron campus, if you just want to do your own research, studentaid.gov is a great area to find links to free scholarship, college service searches, just some awesome financial aid information. And then Calling College, the financial aid department, obviously Dr. Robinson works here with us at Hebron every day. She's a great resource here as well. And their financial aid department is wonderful. And they are open and ready to answer any questions that you may have, even if your student is not committing to Calling College. So they would love to help you. Okay, I want to show you one last slide here. If you're still hanging on with us, we would love for you to fill out a feedback survey. I think Ms. Hood has probably put that in the chat box by now. If not, she will right now. That survey helps us kind of take attendance on who was here and a little bit of feedback from you. It's 3 very, very quick yes, no questions. So please, please fill that out. It's probably 10 seconds of your time. This is also another slide, again, of all the Hebron counselors here with their email address and alphabet split in case you need to get a hold of us. All right. that is it for our presentation. We're going to stick around a little bit and answer any questions in the chat box. If you have any more questions at all, we'll probably give it another 5 to 10 minutes or so. All right. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Yes.
So sorry, Janelle. I just wanted to answer, I think it's Jennifer Holloman's question about the senior meeting from last week. It is already posted on Hebron's website. The recording you can find there. And
yes,
your
and once again, we will post this one.
It is on the counseling website. So if you go to the counseling link, you should be able to get to that presentation, and then we'll post this one as soon as the recording has been finished via WebEx.
Janelle, your actual PowerPoint presentation, a parent is asking, will you post the slides?
Yes, we will on that Hebron website. We'll post the slides and this recorded presentation. Does that answer your question, Mrs. Hood?
Yes.
Okay.
And then Dr. Robertson, another parent had a question. They recently moved from another state, relocated to Texas, and wanting to know, does it matter? They just filed that tax return, what they have. Is that correct?
Yes. So in order for the federal government to start assessing your estimated family contribution, they need something to start with. Now, you can always go back in and update the FAFSA as well with new information. To establish residency in a state and to be considered for in-state tuition, you do have to have lived in that state for at least a year. So for the student's second year of college, they would be considered a resident, not necessarily the first year.
Somebody had asked earlier in the chat about FAFSA versus TASFA, or really more so, did they need to do both? No, you do not need to do both. You're either going to do the FAFSA or the TASFA based on your residency. So if you meet any of the residency requirements for the FAFSA, you fill out the FAFSA. If you do not, then you would fill out the TASFA.
Correct. And someone I saw asked about, does this apply to trade schools? I would love to say yes, all trade schools, but I can't 100% say that. But from the students that we've worked with, a lot of trade schools do have a financial aid, department, and FAFSA money is granted for that. That's something you'd have to check with the actual trade school.
Yes, Ms. Renee, I was going to add that as well, but you have to really check with those schools that you're going to for trade. The question specifically mentions UTI. I would definitely check with them to see. Many of the programs do work closely with FAFSA and the information from the EFC and all of that good stuff, but just really check that.
All right. The reason I'm asking that is because I myself went to a similar type school back in the days. DeVry University they classify as a trade school back in those days, and the admission back then, it's all about profiting. The guy's trying to sell you, hey, you know what, just come, we'll get you straightened out. However, at the end of my program, when I got my degree, I ended up owning a lot more than I needed. So I want to understand that, because right now, from what talking to my son, he's set on, going to a trade school or UTI, and I want to see if that's applied to this. So, but thank you for answering that. I will check with them.
Yes, it's a good question.
There's one more question. Can someone answer, will a student automatically receive scholarship money for national merit?
So that got back into the slide that we went over about the different types of aid. Some institutions have automatic scholarships for students who qualify academically. Other institutions have separate scholarship applications for that you have to apply for separately, not FAFSA, not the college application, but an actual separate scholarship application if the student believes that he or she would qualify. That is an absolutely appropriate and perfect question to ask one of those financial aid representatives, especially as you go about applying for that institution if you don't see anything on there about national merit or scholarships for students who are very highly achieving academically.
I also want to say that I see a lot of people asking about like the income level and what it has to be to qualify for financial aid, and that is very institution based. So that's why you fill this form out through the government. They verify your income information, and then you let them know what colleges you want this information sent to. And so then, based on what funds the colleges have, they will determine what aid package they can put together for you. So that is a very case by case basis. Just for a personal example, I did undergrad at a state institution here in Texas, and I was not awarded grant money. But then I was undergrad. I was a student. I was using my parents' income. Then when I went to grad school, I was an adult with a job. My husband had a job. I really didn't think I would get any financial aid, but I was going to a private school. I was going to DBU at that point, and they gave grant money to me. And so it really was like, sometimes their income can be more or less, but the institution may just have different determining factors as to how they will award you aid. And so that's why we recommend, especially freshman year, to go ahead and fill out the form and see what happens. And then you can kind of make a judgment call in the future upcoming years as to whether or not it benefits you or not.
Great information, Ms. Rayford. Thank you.
Also, in the coming years, it is a renewal. It's not starting all over. So typically there is a way to copy information from the previous year onto the next year. I noticed a question in the chat too. Is it every semester or every year? And it is every year, but then they price out per semester what you are awarded.
I also want to piggyback on what Ms. Rayford said about it being very institutional based. And that also goes for private versus public. And a lot of times, even though the cost of a private institution may look astronomical on paper, a lot of times they have alumni donors that will actually have tons of opportunities for scholarships that kind of help lower that cost of college when you're looking at private versus public. And that it really kind of goes back to a lot of the statements that have been made about really working closely with the institution's financial aid office, because they are super, super helpful and super knowledgeable and can help guide you in those areas as well.
And I also saw a question about the dates for the FAFSA. Now, if you are a December grad and you are planning to attend college in January, you can go ahead and fill out the FAFSA now for the spring semester. But if you are not attending school until fall 2022, then you need to wait until October 1st to complete the FAFSA for that school year, the upcoming school year.
And yes, that question about how many siblings you have in college, that is an exact question on the FAFSA application. They will be asking how many children, how many dependents, how many are currently in college. So again, they take all of that into consideration when they decide about the estimated family contribution.
We did get a question about out-of-county rates for Collin Community College, and as a dual credit student, our students are given a waiver and given the in-county rate. As soon as the student stops becoming a dual credit student, in other words, once they graduate from high school, it goes back to the out-of-county but in-state tuition rate per hour.
Okay, any more questions? Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to go ahead and end the presentation then. Don't forget, you can always email your counselor or Dr. Robinson or call in college's financial aid department to get more information or more specific information. Thank you so much for attending tonight, and hopefully you'll keep attending the little workshops and things that the Hebron Counseling Department offers in the future. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Robinson, I'm going to exit it out. Thanks for your help.
Yeah. Take care, y'all.
Good
Bye,
job,
everybody else.
Good job, everybody.
Yep.